Our final question of the evening is for Mrs Hapeta. It's from Jon Murphy, and he's asking about the partial sale of state-owned energy companies. Mr Murphy asks, returns from the current assets may return $3 billion or more over 10 years. Oil is becoming rarer, electricity demand will only ever go up. Wouldn't it make sense to retain assets in this growing industry?
Just to be clear, it's not asset sales, it's a mixed ownership model, which is...
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Which is 49% put up for shares and 51% owned by the government. So it's not letting go the ownership of the model. The model will still be, the operation will still be owned 51% by the government. What they're also wanting to do is basically go out there and give good share value for people that are superannuitants, people that want to invest and don't want to invest in the financial markets but want to invest in good stock. That's what they want to put up there for those people to go and invest. The other thing is these areas need reinvestment going forward, and what National is proposing is that they should raise about between 5 and 7 billion, but the first billion they're wanting to put it into schools and putting into a separate fund that modernises schools. And that's what National will do. It'll be ring-fenced so that schools will be modernised and they won't have to borrow the money to do the modernisation of those schools.
Mr Lees-Galloway.
I love all the different ways the National Party has tried to justify these asset sales. First of all, it was going to be to pay off debt. Well, then they figured out that doesn't make any sense because the return on investment we get from our state-owned assets is 17% every year. Our debt costs us 6%. So it makes no economic sense to lose the dividend that brings in $900 million every year just so that we can pay off debt, which only costs us 6% every year. Look, the fact is, we all own those state-owned assets. We all benefit from the dividends for them. And if we sell even part of them, then that is taking that ownership, that benefit that we have, the benefit that we receive from those dividends from the many and giving it to a privileged few, the handful of people who will be able to afford to invest in those shares. And remember, there is absolutely nothing to stop those shares going offshore, so that the dividends end up flowing out of the country to somebody else. At the moment, we all benefit from them. Now, the National Party has said, oh, well, if we get rid of some of our state assets, we'll be able to invest in schools and hospitals and what have you. Look, Labor has a plan. It's certainly over the short term, it involves a little more borrowing. But you know what? Over the long term...
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Actually, to the person who just said, show us the money, the National Party hasn't even booked the fact that they are losing a dividend when they sell their assets. So if there's a party that can't get its books right, it's the National Party. Now, so a little bit more borrowing over the short term so that we can get out of debt over the long term. Labor has a long-term plan for New Zealand. Unlike John Key, we care about what happens to New Zealand after 2020, and we will. And that's why our plan is for a little bit more borrowing to get us through the next little while.
Thank you, Mr Lees-Galloway. It's your time's up.
Longer-term plan.